are those potato pancakes and jelly donuts I told you about? I know, crazy lunch, but it's all for the lessons.
Isn't Hanukkah random? I know, right? Like, why 8 days? Why not just cap it out a week?
Well...
Welcome to Hanukkah Movies with Friends. I am your host, Andy Greene, and no character this week, just myself and my very special guest who says I can pass for Jewish.
I swear I would not have known. If you said you were, I would have just taken your word for it.
Well, and I guess that's useful knowledge, but I don't know when that.
There you go.
I don't really want to do that.
When that will come in handy, I don't know.
Yeah, and this is Tamar from the Shipping Room podcast, and just a dear friend. I think this is, we've been on podcasts together a few times.
Yeah.
It's been far too long, though.
It has. I'm so excited to be back, and I'm so excited to talk about this movie that I watched. That I have so many things to say.
Yeah, okay,
so I'm really excited.
So Tamar, what movie did we watch?
So we watched a movie called Mistletoe and Menorahs. And I think it's important to kind of point out that the whole concept of doing this podcast was to find, in this season of many Christmas movies, was to find a Hanukkah movie to talk about, right. One of these lifetime, Hanukkah movies. And the truth of the matter is, there are very, very, very few of them.
Yes.
And I think, of note in this one is that, like, Hanukkah didn't even get its own movie. It got, partial billing right next to the mistletoe and Christmas. So it kind of just goes to show you that when it comes to this country, like, we don't know how to do this. And we certainly don't know how to do this, like, on its own. And I actually think, that the construct of the movie itself is so bad because of that fact. Because it doesn't, the whole movie hinges on her desperation to find somebody to teach her about Hanukkah. And then his equal desperation to find someone to teach him about Christmas. And I didn't get it, because when they met at first and their meeting was not great, and like, it was like, we have to put our differences aside to, like, do this. The only thing I could think was, like, he could literally ask anybody on the planet to help him learn about Christmas. Like, it didn't make sense that he needed her. Obviously, it was clear why she needed him. She didn't know very many Jewish people, and that is believable in this country. But, like, I was like, wait, if she doesn't want to help him, like, he can't find anyone else who's going to teach him about Christmas? Like, I didn't get it.
This movie doesn't make sense from a logic standpoint. I agree. Let's put one pin in it. I just want to drive people to the fact that it's a 2019 film directed by Max McGuire, a female director, and it is available on Lifetime. And also I watched it on Tubi TV, which, both of those have ads, I imagine. So that's how we find it. That's how you enter this magical New York, where there's no such thing as the internet to look up these questions that people have, because, like, I don't need a person to look up what Hanukkah is. I can just, if this was in the 1950s, it might have worked.
Everything about it was strange. To play devil's advocate a little bit, like, I could see how reading about stuff online is not the same as somebody who's been going to these kinds of parties or, like, involved in these kind of family celebrations, kind of explaining to you the specific flair and feel of those events. But it just, like, the whole way the whole way the story was set up was that these two people, like, needed each other, and there was no way for them to find any other way around it.
What am I going to do? I know nothing about Hanukkah. Alex is a history teacher. Alex loves him. He's smart, knowledgeable, handsome. Samantha, what is your point? And Jewish.
And it just, like, maybe from the perspective of her needing him, it sort of worked, but it really didn't make sense in the reverse, other than the fact that she, like, loves Christmas, but, like, so do a lot of people.
And your new girlfriend's family is flying in for Christmas. How much do you know about Christmas?
Nothing.
And also, I find it hard to believe that somebody could grow up in this country and know so little about Christmas, just in general. And I would say that that's not true of, like, very Orthodox communities that are extremely insular and don't get a lot of exposure to the rest of the secular country that we live in. But someone like this character who like, you can tell by the way he dresses, like he doesn't wear a yarmulke on a regular basis, which like is totally fine, but that would be a distinguishing thing that would let me know that he's more observant. That guy went to public school and like knows a million people who celebrate Christmas and like knows what a wreath is. Like he just would because like it didn't, I don't know, like, yes, he's Jewish and yes, he celebrated Hanukkah on the holidays, but he wasn't living in a hole.
Christmas.
Like, the idea that you could grow up in this country and know so little about Christmas is already a strange construct to me.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree 100%. These two people are both really, really ignorant, stupid. And it's weird because you're like railing on Jonathan. And I agree, like, for sort of being not railing on him, but like, yeah, it's so how does he not have absorbed anything? Because we do know that in America, Christmas is everywhere. And even in the like one of 7 Hanukkah movies we could find, it's second billing to Mistletoe, which is obviously a Christmas thing.
Correct.
So yeah, the fact that he doesn't know anything is very unbelievable. And I was sort of like more, I guess, because it's funny because like maybe you're sort of Jonathan, I'm Christy, and I'm watching Christy being like, this is so embarrassing.
Let's get you a menorah.
Great. That's like a candle holder, right?
We really have a lot of work ahead of us.
It's actually Jonathan's girlfriend when they're eating the latkes, and I'm gonna introduce that in a moment. She was like, 8 days. How random.
Isn't Hanukkah random? I know, right? Like, why 8 days? Why not just cap it out a week?
And then and then the random, like she used that word random multiple times to describe like words and just like, like, oh, how latke was even like, that's just a random, like, that doesn't make any sense.
Wait. Try it with sour cream.
Really?
Yeah.
It's very random.
And I was just like, these people are anti-Semitic / just like have no idea what other cultures are. Like, I was just like.
Correct. These were not very evolved people. But also like my experience growing up in this country, Jewish, like so many things about it were strange to me, right? Like, like the idea that this man who owns the toy company or whatever would have invited this clearly Christian woman to his Hanukkah party to do the religious part of this, like.
Tell me, what are you doing next Tuesday?
No plans.
I just, like, why? Why would he ask her to do the blessing?
Brush up on your traditions. We expect everyone to participate.
Are you kidding? I'm an expert.
Wonderful. I will sign you up to lead some of the events.
It made no sense. Like, nobody would do that. First of all, I will tell you this right now. No Jewish person in America would call their Hanukkah party a holiday party and not be very clear about the fact that, like, this is going to be a Hanukkah party. And when I'm saying I want you to lead stuff, I mean, I want you to lead Jewish things. Nobody would like leave that detail out. So that was also crazy when the friend who like worked as this like administrator was like, oh God, you don't know, it's how much do you know about Hanukkah?
I don't need to study up. I'm a Christmas boss. But can you light the menorah? What's that now? David didn't invite you to his Christmas party. He invited you to his Hanukkah party.
I was like it just, that's not, we don't function that way. Like, we are very aware of the fact that our holidays are not the like generic holidays that everybody else celebrates. And nobody would invite somebody to a Hanukkah party where like Jewish rituals are being performed with the expectation that they would know them or do them. That just isn't how we do things.
It shows that they have no sort of, I think the people making this movie really had no awareness, but also, like that she was shocked or surprised, like, oh, you didn't know. I was like, I didn't know, because of course I would assume the same thing. And like you said, a holiday party, we have to say holiday party because we're trying to be friendly and inclusive. But if you're having a Hanukkah party, that would never go the other way. And also
exactly.
It's so clearly Christmas, like,
yes,
it's all in her face and what she's saying.
Yes. And like, oh, he misunderstood. And he was like, you're an expert. And it's like, I'm sorry, you thought she meant she was an expert on the blessings you say when you light the menorah? Like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't.
No one would think that.
You didn't think that. It's ridiculous. And I mean, aside from the fact that from a religious perspective, like from a Jewish religious perspective, there's actually like a conflict from having someone who isn't Jewish, like recite the blessings. Like that wouldn't even be like, it doesn't make any sense. And I also like couldn't figure out, like, I get it, it's a job thing, but like, I just feel like in that scenario, like you just be like, oh, I'm not Jewish, I don't know the blessings.
Well, I mean, like, I 100%. Well, even in that pitch,
to say that, like, I just everything about it, I was like, what?
That pitch meeting was so confusing because that's like, that would never happen either. That all of a sudden it's just the two of them talking. All the bosses and more important people are just sort of watching, and that she gets invited, and it was just so weird. Oh, like, please come. And also, like you said, I was wondering if that was a problem that she was doing the blessing, but it's also like this family that's doing a Hanukkah party every year, presumably, doesn't have someone to do this already. Like, they don't have the forgive me if the Zavta, like someone like Zavta to like, it's just like, is everyone dead and we have to fill this blonde girl to do it? It's so funny because it just didn't make any sense. Like, from like any perspective, like, or what would have probably happened is that they all just would have sang the blessings together. Like, it's not a performative thing. It's not like, and now we pick the one person who's going to go and do the performance of like everyone just stands around the menorah and you light it together and you sing the blessings and like that. Like, it's not, I suppose if you're somewhere where only like one of the people in the family knows, you know, like the one of the parents knows it, then maybe they do. But like, generally speaking, at a party like that, like everybody would come together and you would do it as a group. Like, it wouldn't be like this moment of somebody stepping up to the plate and like doing it in front of right. It's not a Star is Born or a
right. So just everything about it like felt like exactly what it was, which was like Hollywood trying to do Hanukkah, but also like trying to make Hanukkah Christmas, and like they're just different, and they just don't. They're not the same.
But what makes it truly special is just being with the people you love.
Another thing Christmas and Hanukkah have in common.
And also, the other thing that I thought was really interesting, they made like, it felt to me like they wanted to include details without fully researching or thinking through what those details would then mean for these characters. So like, what was the guy's name? Jonathan, yeah. So he has this grandmother, right? Savta is grandmother in Hebrew. So he has this grandmother who owns this Judaica shop, which, by the way, would not have sold a Christmas tree topper. Definitely not. That is not a thing you can get at a store that sells Jewish goods, even a Jewish Star one. I don't think.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, it was a Jewish Star, but like, okay, so that's
I mean, I shouldn't say that. I suppose there are more pluralistic, diverse Judaica stores somewhere that might have items for families that are intermarried and celebrate both holidays. It is somewhat hard for me to believe, but I come from a much more like right-wing religious community. And so it is possible that there are stores like that somewhere that I just am unaware of.
And those are the same that do the holiday parties.
Yeah, I guess so. So that was crazy to me. But what I thought was so interesting was that they took the time to have this grandmother who clearly is connected to Judaism and runs this store and
Jewish traditions go back 6,000 years.
And she seemed to have not a single ounce of issue with her son dating someone who isn't Jewish. Now, understand, I am making no comment on this one way or the other. I am just saying what I know to be true about grandmothers who seem to be like Jonathan's grandmother. And that to me was like a glaring, like her not only was she welcoming of Christy, but she was already, you know, she was happy about the other girlfriend, and now it was another girlfriend. Like I just from my experience in Jewish communities and with grandmothers and with all of that, it is not common there. I mean, look, there are plenty of Jewish families who are perfectly happy for their children and grandchildren to be with whoever they are. But usually the ones who are as connected as to own a store that is like fully dedicated to the Jewish religion would feel a certain way about that. And so that was like an interesting thing to me, because they made that a choice. And then they also made the choice to not have that be any sort of issue. And in general, I thought that was interesting, right? Like the character of Jonathan, as they were creating him, was somebody who was clearly connected to his religion. And yet the complication of dating someone who isn't Jewish never, ever came up in any way. And for someone like Jonathan to have a Christmas tree in his home would be, I think, at least like a conversation. It would at least be like this is like a weird thing that I never did growing up that feels like a little bit strange. And I'm happy to do it for my girlfriend who I want to make happy, but it wasn't that. It was more just like, I don't know what this is. Like, how do I do it? Like, teach me the things. And I get it. Like, it was a Lifetime movie that wasn't particularly nuanced. But I think that there's just the missing of that nuance felt very like, wow, they don't really understand this. Like, and there are plenty of Jews who date and marry people who celebrate Christmas, like across, I mean, there's plenty. So I'm not suggesting that doesn't happen, but they were painting Jonathan as a Jew who is connected and affiliated with Judaism in a way that I think a lot of people in this country aren't, which is also fine. And the issue was more about just like not knowing Christmas, not about like, this is really foreign to me and it's not what I grew up with, and it's not necessarily like, and I think, having been around Jews my whole life, and particularly Jews who I think are similar to the kind of character they were creating with Jonathan, like, I think there would have been more nuance somewhere in there about that.
Yeah, more feelings about what he's doing, and is he becoming the country, like America, like, oh, now am I just like becoming like, I don't know, like homogenizing myself, or just like wondering, having a conflict. There's a conflict there, or at least one that could have been explored. But, you know, this movie, I don't think will make sense until I get to eat the thing that does make sense, delicious food. You do. I'm so impressed with what you have sitting in front of you. Those look everything looks so authentic. I'm gonna try. Okay, let's see if I can. I did film a little bit before, but this is okay. These are potato latkes, of course, and this is from Brent's Deli in Northridge, California. There's a bunch of options that are all sort of far away from me, but this one, Aaron actually recommended and was in his neck of the woods. So it has sour cream, and instead of just applesauce, it looks like it's a cherry applesauce. So like that might be their sort of twist on it. And then I have they did not mention applesauce in the movie. They did mention sour cream. Sour cream, yeah. I like both. I like to do some applesauce and some sour cream. Well, here, I'll do the donut next. Let's have that for dessert. I also want to say that Christy, like, I feel like every day over the course of the movie, she was like making latkes in her house. And I would just like, for anyone who's interested, like, not that that's not possible, but like making latkes is like a thing. It's a lot of work. Well, first of all, you have to like grate all of the potatoes, which you can do in a food processor, and it doesn't have to take forever, but it's like a process. And then you're deep frying them in oil, which means like your entire house is going to smell like latkes for days. And like, I can tell you, I do this once on Hanukkah and then I'm done. It is not the kind of thing that I'm like, oh yeah, and then I'll just do it again tomorrow, and then I'll do it again the next night. And then, I was like cracking up. I was like, she's doing it again.
She's making these again. But yeah, I mean, like, it's not impossible. It's just like, it was funny because it's like way more of like a, I think.
Oh yeah, that was very like a TV chef, movie chef sort of thing where it's like, that doesn't exist. But like,
That doesn't even sound like a real word.
the reaction of Peter, her current boyfriend, to looking at latkes acting like it's like a pile of like frog legs.
I don't know.
Bugs.
That kind of looks like you're making guinea pig.
No, it was just like, that looked delicious. It was just fried potatoes. Like, that's what it was just bizarre. On the same level that everything has been bizarre. It's like, how is you look at that and like not going to try it? I mean, I know we're saying that like, oh, Peter's a piece of shit, but.
Wait, you need sour cream.
I'm out.
I actually thought the most interesting thing that this movie did was create the character of Peter.
It's okay. It's not my thing.
Wait, you need to try things outside of your perspective to better understand the world.
For real? Thank you, but no thank you.
No, I actually thought, like, from a perspective of like, how do women like wind up with men like this? I thought they did actually have like a few moments where you could kind of see that Peter was like just decent enough that Christy would think, oh, like he's a good guy. And then some of his more shitty things were like a little bit more subtle, you know? So like
at the beginning, certainly. Like,
he answered the phone when he was on the rowing machine and you know, she was kind of like, why did you answer the phone? But he said, like, I knew this was an important call. I wanted to make sure to answer you. Like, he's full of shit. But
well, we don't know that really. I mean, we do because we know who this guy is just by what he's wearing.
100%. And they threw in these things, even when he was like, I knew you were going to ask for coffee and I got you some. And it's like, you could see how somebody would think that's a sweet thing to do, even though he had no interest in getting her what she actually wanted, and like actually only showed up at her apartment because his cable was down. Like, but he did have these like random moments where I said to myself, oh, I bet he did a lot of that shit early on, and she kind of just got like swept in and then doesn't really notice that he's horrible, or just doesn't realize that relationships aren't supposed to be like that and people aren't supposed to treat you that way, because I think that happens.
Yeah, and she needed to learn that her drink order is the same way you should order a man. All right. Like, that was
also super strange.
I hated the drink order so much.
A large sugar-free pumpkin spice latte with soy milk, no foam, an extra espresso shot, served at 120 degrees, filled 3/4 of the way up in this cup. With whipped cream? Definitely not.
The only thing that I was on board with was that he got her black coffee. I'm like, yeah, if you want to stay up, have black coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, I know that's not what you wanted. And I mean, that he makes fun of her order is the bad part. But I also was like, the logic there makes sense. And also you were being thoughtful. Here's coffee and food.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, right, like he did think of her and he did do it for her. He did it in like a little bit of like, I know what's good for you sort of way that I don't necessarily think she appreciated, nor do I know that I did. But like, right, he did think ahead. He did like think, oh, she's going to need coffee. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, he did have these moments of like doing things that could be considered nice or like just, you know, good gestures or whatever it is. He sucked overall. And also had like no interest in what she actually wanted or like anything like that, and just saw her as sort of a piece of his larger picture, which whatever. But anyway.
I found it heartbreaking, and also like heartbreaking that it actually felt like a real thing, even though this movie doesn't feel real in any way. But like when Peter was so confused with Jonathan, when Jonathan was like, oh, but don't you want her to do something that she loves to do? And he's just like, what? No one does that. And because he's just like, no, she's going to be a banker because it makes 20% more pay. And it was just like, I know so many of those people, and that exists. And that to me was like, how did that nugget, or like, I mean, I know it was sort of delivered in a way that maybe wasn't a truth bomb, but I was like, that guy is real. And I hate that somehow in this movie, there's like a real thing.
I thought that his character and the relationship between Christy and him was the most interesting part of the movie, because they didn't actually make him so over the top terrible that you were sitting there going, how could she ever be with this guy? At least I wasn't. I was kind of like, oh, I sort of see how she got sucked into this guy and how like, you know, after a time, like you kind of stop noticing that like you don't like the way that he makes you feel and you're just sort of like, this is like what it is. And I felt really glad that she, you know, figured that out and realized that she deserved better and more. But I thought it was interesting. I thought as far as like human relationships go, it kind of nailed it. I also thought it was hilarious. I thought they could have been more creative with how they broke up Jonathan and his girlfriend. I thought.
Heather thinks it's too soon for me to meet her dad.
You broke up?
Well, because Christy had run into the girlfriend and said like, everybody loves Jonathan. And then the girlfriend was like, my dad's going to meet him. And then my dad's going to love him because everyone loves him. And that's going to make me feel like I have to stay with him. And that's going to make me feel pressure. And
I actually understand that kind of thing. But
I get it. But I don't know. It felt like, it felt sort of out of nowhere. And like it all just felt like.
It was convenient.
It felt convenient. Yes.
And just the fact that they ran into each other at the only coffee shop in New York or wherever the fuck Chicago. It was Chicago.
I didn't know where they were.
It was Chicago because that was Lily's favorite part because she's like, oh, Chicago. And I was That's just funny. Like, and I was not happy. And she's like, you don't like Chicago? And I'm like, no, I just don't get excited for establishing shots. You know, like that's not, that doesn't do it. That doesn't get me going. But you know, it does get me going. There's sour cream, an apple, and a cherry. This latke is really good. And it's not hot anymore, but still like, delicious. It's a nice, very bready. It's thick, like in I
actually like a thinner, crispier latke.
Yeah, this one, I think the edges are that. And in the middle is sort of a more meaty experience. But yeah, I think in my experience, I've had much more sort of very thin, crispy, almost like hash brown is how I would.
Yeah, that's how I like a latke. Also, for the record, when he taught her how to light the menorah, she did it backwards, which I was like, oh. Just because like if you're gonna do it and they like took all this time like for him to teach her and like whatever. Because when you light the menorah, you're supposed to light it like the newest one first. So like the first one goes on the end and then the second one goes next to it. And so like when you light it, you light the second one and then you light the first one.
Oh.
So you always light the newest one first. So on the third night, you light the third one, then the second one, then the first one.
I would say he was being nice, but they made a big point to say that he's a tough teacher, the right kind of tough.
Yeah, I was like waiting. I was waiting for him to be like, that was great, but next time make sure. But he did not do that, and I was like, ooh.
You're definitely getting whipped cream.
Excuse me?
Oh, nothing. Probably extra whipped cream.
I mean, what I said in the beginning was really the hardest thing for me to swallow, which was like, how is it possible that this guy needs this woman to teach him about Christmas? Like he could, like literally you could just get on a bus and sit down next to someone and be like, hey, could you like give me a few pointers about Christmas? Like you can find someone on every corner in this country that can teach you about Christmas. So it's just the notion that like he had to put up with this woman who he found insufferable from her coffee order. Like I was like, this doesn't
even their meet cute didn't make sense because like I mean she is annoying for it, I'll say that, but it's also like I'm not gonna make a scene about it and complain, but it was like sort of they both suck in that scene, right? And I'm like, and I guess they both apologize. That's like the apology muffin is sort of they're both, I don't know. I will say the food in the movie was the best part. Like it actually looked good, and I was like, most movies the food doesn't look good, but I was like, even the muffin looked good. Yeah. And then she like mauls it and hands it to him, and I'm like, ew, don't eat that.
No, their meet cute was super weird because it was like, exactly what you said. Like, yes, her order's annoying, but also weird that you're a total stranger and you're gonna comment on it for no reason. Like,
are you insinuating that my order warrants them getting it wrong?
I would never insinuate that.
The other thing is about that scene and him commenting on her order and like being all snarky is that then for the rest of the movie, the character they established Jonathan to be, it doesn't even make sense. Like he did not, the character that we learned like that we met in Jonathan, it does not to me seem like the kind of guy who would randomly just start giving some woman online at the coffee shop a hard time because her order's a little bit specific. Like he's like a very like kind, unassuming, like it just, I don't know. I was like, that guy was like, oh, here we go. She's gonna give you extra whipped cream. Like I was just like, I don't know. I didn't buy it.
It's not great writing. It's we need to make them meet, and this is the best way because there's a metaphor here. You know, right. But like, because he is, like you said, he isn't, because he's the one who points out that like if someone who's so specific about an order is making all these compromises in their relationship, that doesn't track to me. And he's the one who points it out, and that would work way better if it had sort of been the opposite somehow in their meet cute. I don't know. Right. I mean, because obviously you need to have the conflict and they need to hate each other. I get it. We need to have that.
Well, I was actually just going to ask that.
Yeah. Or do we need that?
From a storytelling perspective, right? Like, is that necessary? Because they also gave them both significant others. So it's like, how many obstacles do you need?
That's true.
Like them hating each other is an obstacle. So it's like, you don't just set them up, they meet, and boom, they're in love, and then you don't need the whole journey of the movie. Right. But in that case, then you don't need them to each have significant others, because that's the journey.
That's a good point.
They gave them each significant others also. So that was obstacles that they had to work around. So it just felt like they were setting up more obstacles than maybe were necessary.
I think you know, a movie is better the more conflict there is or the more obstacles, but this isn't one of those movies that benefits from it for sure, especially since, like you said, it actually just makes the character more muddled. It's not Peter. Oh, Peter's the other guy. But like Jonathan, he's two different characters. The character he is in that initial first scene, and then from the moment he comes with the muffin, he's the same guy the rest of the way. And they only have that scene. So we can have that conflict at the beginning. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I think they could just fight over the same order. Like, what if he ordered the same coffee or something, or I don't know. I don't actually care enough to come up with a better
to come up with an alternate meet cute. No, agreed. But also, when they first met, when they're in the coffee shop, his phone rings. And his ringtone was a Hanukkah song. And you guys.
She's incorrigible.
That was the most ridiculous thing I have ever seen in my life. In my life. Come on, stop. I was like, we get it. He's the Jewish guy. Like, that's not going to be his ringtone. Come on.
No, I thought you were telling me to stop laughing.
No. Oh my God, no, please laugh. No, I was like,
because I lost it when that happened. Because I was like, it's like one of those movies where it's like, I am not Jewish at all. And I could write this movie better with just it's just so obvious that no one does that.
Right. It's so right. Exactly. But it also, it's like they needed to have like all the arrows like pointing. It's like, this is the Jewish guy in the movie. Like, it's like, I couldn't. When that happened, I was like, this movie is so special.
Special is a really nice way to put it. So was it like, well, maybe they put it in there because like he's gonna have to sing Hanukkah songs like multiple times. So like he's musical, and I don't know. But was this
that was awesome? No, because look, the sad truth is I've never watched a rom-com that revolved around a Jewish holiday. So like that was fun. And despite all of the things that I was like, no way, that's ridiculous, they did get a good number of the details correct. And the Hebrew was pretty well done. And her recitation of the blessings at the end was spot on. I don't know how she got that good based on what she was doing on day like 2 and 3, but okay. She did it perfectly.
This movie didn't know how to use montages. Like
I didn't even know that he taught her the second. There's 2 that you do, and I didn't even know he taught her the second one, but she nailed it. So that I thought was, like there were moments where I was like, oh yeah, they got that right. Like that's great. There's the obvious frustration. Look, being Jewish in this country can be frustrating. There is I have no problem with Christmas time. I have no problem with being wished a Merry Christmas. I do not get offended. I am very comfortable being my Jewish self in my own home and my community, and like that is not what is generally celebrated by the population here is totally okay with me. I actually love Christmas, and I love celebrating Christmas with my friends who do that. But there is a frustration to just being Jewish in this country and just not having that representation in pop culture. And I'm a very pop culture centric person, right? And I live in New York, I can very easily find the Jewish things that I need. There are people that live in pockets of this country where there aren't that many Jews, right, and it's harder for them. So it's nice to see yourself. It's nice to see your story, right? And this felt like it felt lazy. It felt like they wanted to include Hanukkah, and they wanted to do the same typical Lifetime romantic comedy, but they didn't really want to dive into what this might actually look like.
It's a first draft.
So they took the shiny details, the ones that they could make fun and whatever, and they threw it in. But there's a lot of nuance that comes along with Judaism that got pushed aside, I think. So it was sweet for what it was, and I think that Christy and Jonathan could have a beautiful life together. I'm not suggesting that they couldn't.
Well, that's what we want, right? Is that okay, these two people that were so ignorant of each other's cultures or holidays, can find love, and that we can combine, not necessarily combine, but it's not that hard. And that they did have I guess chemistry in some way. I mean, I don't know. No one really had any sort of
as a shipping expert, yeah. I will say no. I did not feel particularly invested in.
No, I agree with that. I think I was wishing that into existence. I have to, you have to make that to be able to get through the whole movie.
Also, question. Do we think that the friend, the one who set them up, because Samantha, because her son is in Jonathan's class, do we assume that she's married? Do we know if she's married?
At the very beginning, she says that the teacher is hot, and we see Jonathan.
So the way we get introduced to Jonathan is she says, "Is it bad that I think my son's teacher is hot?" And then her friend goes and gets together with him, which is fine if Samantha wasn't announcing that she's kind of interested in him. I was a little bit confused by that. I was what, was this a conflict here, and you just told your friend you're interested in him, but then you set her up to learn from him, and now that I just was I thought that was a weird tidbit also, and I wasn't clear on.
Oh yeah, that was a loose a hanging chad for sure. And also I think for the most part Samantha just existed as a plot device to bring us through, although I guess Christy got her a promotion or something. Yeah. But Samantha was just basically the world's best hype woman for Christy. And also her boss, Christy's boss, I've never seen, I guess he's the CEO of this toy company or whatever he is. He's the nicest person and likes every single idea she has, and they're terrible.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah, but can I take a bite of donut, please?
Yes, take a bite of donut. I want to watch this.
So could we have a Christy Jonathan moment where you can coach me in how to pronounce, because I feel like it's Sufganiyot.
I was very impressed with Sufganiyot. So Sufganiyot is the plural.
So
the singular is Sufganiyah.
Okay.
And that looks like a very authentic one. And they're fried and then covered in powdered sugar. Yum. And stuffed with jelly. And where did you get that from?
Thanks for asking. I got this because it is early, and most bakeries, Jewish bakeries, didn't have them yet, but I found one called Unique Pastry that was a kosher and I think vegetarian place that was in Tarzana, California. But let me take this bite, and powdered sugar always scares me. because it's going to go. It already has gone when I like gestured, like powdered sugar just went everywhere.
I love it. Yeah, you can't breathe on it. That looks so good.
Spongy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't.
So like, I was just thinking like some of the things that we deal with Jews as far as like representation goes. Like Party City released like a packet of like photo booth props, you know, for Hanukkah, which is like super fun, right? And they had the dreidel and they had the menorah, but then they also had like matzah and like challah and so what happens is that the people doing this stuff, rather than doing the research and finding out like what do we need to make this Hanukkah specific, they instead are just like Jewish things, like let's throw it, and like you see it all the time. Like I can't remember what I just saw like from a supermarket that was selling something that's like more like Passover related, like for Hanukkah, it was like get your discounted, whatever it is. And it's like, it's not one size fits all. Like there are specific things to specific holidays. And it would sort of be like if you went into a store and they had like all of those like little peeps that are like for Easter, that usually come out at Easter time and represent that, but they were selling them for Christmas, or like it feels out of place. And it feels like the kind of thing that if you actually took the time to be like, what is this holiday and what is fitting for it, then you would know, like, you don't need a challah. Like challah is just like your way of saying Jew.
Right. It's stereotypes.
Like, it's not, exactly. And so it's like this weird like appropriation of things, whereas the intention is good. And by the way, I would love a packet of photo booth props to take pictures with at Hanukkah parties. I think it's like a really fun idea. But when you do it wrong, instead of it being like this nice thing that you're trying to be inclusive, it becomes this stereotypical, like that you just end up making people feel bad and unrepresented and unimportant, and it doesn't work.
Well, so would you say that this movie is better or worse than Party City? Or like, is that a decent corollary to sort of what the intent was with this movie?
I think I have less problem with the movie. The movie had its problems, but again, the problems it had were more nuanced things than actual errors.
Right.
They didn't get a lot of things wrong. There's just, I think what they missed was like the experience of being Jewish. They got the details, right? They got the like, you light the candles and these are the songs you sing and this is how you light the candles and this is how many days there are and these are the foods we eat. Like they got the details right, but there's an experience. What they wanted to suggest was that it's the same for everyone in this country. Just some people celebrate Christmas and some people celebrate Hanukkah. But the truth of the matter is it's really different. And even the way the movie was set up, and that's why I like harped on this, like even the way the movie was set up to suggest that he would be going through the same thing she was going through, trying to find someone to explain Christmas to him, undermines the fact that there are so few of us. And the reason that Christy was worried about finding someone who could help her understand this is because there aren't that many people who can help you understand this. And that in itself is the experience of being Jewish in America. And so suggesting that Jonathan was having the same problem, not being able to find someone who could explain to him Christmas so he could understand his girlfriend, is disingenuous because it's not the same. And because because the majority of people in this country don't know anything about Hanukkah and are completely unaware. The majority of people in this country, even the Jonathans, know a decent amount about Christmas, because you can't grow up in this country and have your eyes open and not know a decent amount about Christmas. maybe you don't know about fruitcake. I honestly, like, that felt possible to me. Like,
I think that was possible, and that was I still have yet to have a good fruitcake, so well, like, I need to find that one that the guy had, because like, you could make the fact that he was, you know, so unknowledgeable about Christmas, like, if it was a nuanced movie, maybe there's a reason why he's like, so I don't want to know anything about Christmas. I'm like coming from your perspective, which is such a good and like I'm glad you shared that, because it does make sense. And the fact that, like, oh, maybe that's why he's just like so fucking tired of Christmas. He's just sort of erased it. He turns the other way. That's how he doesn't have to know it. But then, and that would be a much bigger leap to make, to get into a romance with someone who loves Christmas. That would be a better movie too. But
correct. Right. They missed that. Right. And also, like, it's hard for me to imagine that somebody like Jonathan is feeling that nervous about going to Christmas with his girlfriend. It's not like there's any, like, it's not like people who celebrate Christmas recite things in a different language the way that we do. It's not like there's I don't know what he was nervous about. Like, I can't think from a Jewish perspective, if I was dating someone who celebrated Christmas and it was like, you're going to come home with me for Christmas, I might say, like, oh, I've never been home with someone for Christmas. Like, this will be fun. This will be interesting. This will be new. But I can't imagine being like, I'm not going to know. Like, what am I not going to know? Well, and what am I not going to know that I can't pick up on in the same way that I would pick up on something if I went to anybody's house for Thanksgiving or whatever, and like, you have your family traditions and I have to learn them. Like, there's point. There's nothing about her feeling of, I'm going to show up at this party and not know anything, is like, yeah, because Jews do everything in a foreign language and all of our traditions are fairly unknown to most people. But like, that doesn't exist in the reverse. We all grew up in this, like, we all grew up in America. We know Christmas. Like, it undermines the experience of being Jewish. And that to me was like the biggest problem with the whole premise. And it didn't offend me the way that the Party City thing, like, kind of, I was like, oh, come on. But it did speak to the fact that people are missing that. They're missing that there is a struggle in growing up in this country Jewish. There's a struggle in the fact that people don't know our traditions, that people don't know our holidays. Even Jews, I can't tell you how often I remember, like, I'll be listening to the radio. Passover is an 8-day holiday. There's 2 days at the beginning when you do the Seders, and then there's 6 more days after that. And in those 8 days, for that whole time, you're supposed to not be eating bread and you're eating matzah instead, and like the whole thing. And usually Easter is at the beginning of that week or the end of that week. Almost always it falls out that way. And I remember listening to the radio one year, and there was like some morning show, and one of the women was like the token Jew on the show. And so she was saying, and it was like after the Seder. So it was like, let's say day 3 of Passover. And she said, Passover was this past weekend, it's over. And now Easter's coming up next weekend. And it's like, even Jews often don't know all the details about the holidays, because there's a lot of them. And they're just, people are, for the most part, like, less plugged into the details and more plugged into just the tradition. And so when it comes to Passover, the traditional piece is those first 2 nights. And then after that, it's just more about like the actual religious observance. And that's where your average American Jew just isn't particularly connected, which is totally fine. But it makes it really hard when you're trying to like write a movie like this to compare it, when the knowledge base about what Christmas is and what happens around Christmas is so vast, and the knowledge base about what happens around Hanukkah and Jewish things is so small. And to kind of try and equate those two things, it just doesn't feel authentic in any way.
Oh, it's bullshit. Yeah. It speaks to the immigrant experience and the assimilation, right? It's sort of like, it's homogenizing the culture again, right? Like it's not, the nuance is gone. And then you get these Christmas cookie cutter fucking movies. I almost nailed it.
It was good. I was with you the whole time.
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, Tamar, do you have any, like, aside from the fact that we need to team up and write a Christmas Hanukkah rom-com that's better, or just write a Hanukkah rom-com? We don't need Christmas.
So that's what I was trying to think about it. And I actually, like, I don't know. I have to do some research about if there are other, I think there have been like one or two other Hanukkah movies that have come out in the last year or so. And I should probably watch them and kind of see what else is out there before making a general blanket statement about how there's nothing out there. But I was trying to think about, what a Hanukkah story would look like on its own, and not have to combine it somehow with Christmas. And, I don't know. I think it probably could be done well.
I think the 8 days, I mean, obviously this is the Adam Sandler movie. I haven't seen it, but the 8 days is a perfect time frame to put a romance in. So if there's something that has to lead to 8 days at the end of it, obviously I don't know the nuances to the holiday, but like maybe you meet someone on day one or the day before, and then sort of the mission has to be basically fall in love by day 8, or that would be the frame of my Hallmark Lifetime. That would be my first instinct, but I have no idea.
Maybe there's a way to make our most inspiring congressmen and women into action figures. Yeah, it's not there yet.
It's perfect. Do it.
No, it's too boring. It's just a seed.
Sounds like a real winner to me.
Me too.
Would you buy a Maccabee action figure?
Okay, I want to talk about this also. The excitement around all of these ideas for these toys did not make any sense to me.
Oh,
okay.
The friendliest business atmosphere I've ever been in.
Hold on.
Sorry.
She came up with, no. I didn't mean it like that. That's just how I didn't mean like, I just meant.
You're more talking to the movie.
Like, I'm like, we need to take a minute here. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. She came in, first of all, I thought when her dumbass boyfriend was like, stockbroker action figures, I thought that was a joke that we were all laughing at. Like we were all just like, terrible idea by Pete the idiot. I thought that was the thing. And then it was like, she actually went with it. And then the
only idea she had, which shows you that she's not good at her job.
And then Jonathan was like, what about a comic book to go with the stockbrokers? And then she was like, what if we do congressional people instead? Which, like, what? And like, what kid do you know who's like, I want a Ted Cruz action figure with like a comic book that goes with it? Yeah, so okay, I would maybe take like an AOC, but anyway. So that's
those exist at parody joke stores. Like they have like the politician action figure, but like that's not what this is. They mean it literally for children. So yeah.
But wait, I want to discuss the part where not only was it received as a good idea, it was received as such a good idea that the spy stole it to take it to the other team because they wanted to use that idea because it was that good. And I was like, what is happening here? Like, not only were these people like, no, that's a terrible idea. The guy was like, I'm going to steal this and take it to toy whatever because it's so good. That blew my mind.
That Edgar's like trying to get a video thing of a sketch and it's like, you heard her say the idea. Right. You don't need that. Right. It was so funny.
I appreciated the point that Jonathan was making that Jewish toy lines are lacking in the same way that I think like dolls with black skin were lacking. Like I think we just had a very homogenous way of making toys and who we represent in those toys for like a very long time. And so, in any way that we can diversify toy lines, I think is a good idea. I suppose there could be a market for, like, around the Jewish holidays, having some things that could be very specifically marketed to, like, have this at your Seder, like, but the thought that to me would be like a very small, like, niche thing that a company would do. It wouldn't be like, our big fall line is the Maccabee. Like, I don't see that being the way that it would work. But I mean,
only we lived in a world where that was true, you know?
Also, like, like, they're a toy company. They're not like just an action figure company. So it also seems so weird to me that, like, the only toy idea that anybody could come up with was an action figure. Like, no one thought about, like, any kind of, like, cool Legos or, like, cars or, like, you know, a train track with, I mean, there's so many cool things you could do that have nothing to do with, like, action figures and dolls. And it was like, that was the only thing that anybody could think of. I was very confused.
No, I mean, it showed, yeah, that toy company would be bankrupt pretty quickly. And it like, they have a couple references to Big because, you know, there's someone on the piano.
I saw that.
I think even Tom Hanks in Big, Josh Baskin, he recommends comic books to, like, add on to an idea. He even does that. So I was sort of like, oh, that's kind of neat. But it was like to a good idea. His idea was good. This was sort of like, you can't fix stockbroker action figure with a comic book unless the stockbroker transforms into a hippie or something. And then it's like, oh, that's fun. You know, I like that idea. It's like a transformer. But yeah, like, and that's a better idea. And I just made it up. I mean, I guess that's what all those are. But I don't know.
No, but that's the thing. Like, it just, I don't know. Like, I think about this sometimes, you know, when you watch a show, like, remember that Sorkin show, Sunset Strip? What was it called?
Oh yeah, Studio 60 on the
Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. And it's like, you have to write, like, SNL style sketches, and then you have to have the characters react to them as, you know, and say, like, oh my God, that we just did the funniest sketch, like, we just, you know. And then the challenge is actually writing the sketches to be funny, to then have the characters, like, react to them. And that's what I kept thinking about. It's like, like, you're writing the story and you're like, oh, you're the best toy, like, exec we have, and your ideas are always so great. And it's like, well, then you have to back that up with actually being able to write ideas that are so great. And it's like, they couldn't do it. Like, they painted her as this incredibly successful person in her job, and then they just couldn't, like, actually validate that with the good ideas, which is a failure of the writing room, not the character. So it's just
like, I was gonna make a joke and say maybe Peter was right, maybe she should be a banker, but no.
Yeah. Maybe.
But yeah, no, I was thinking, yeah, like, that thing you do is a movie that, like, hinges upon a song working, and that song is so good and like catchy. But yeah, but like, that movie 100%. Would fall apart. But like that, I think the writers knew that, like, okay, this has to be like a pop-worthy song.
For like a hot second, I thought you were gonna say that the song didn't work, and I was like, I have to go.
No, I would never. I would never.
Best. It's so good. I'm actually trying to think if there's anything that I want to say about this movie, like, that was good, because I do feel bad about just, like, hopping on this call to just be mostly negative for so long.
Well, I don't think you're being negative in like a you're not just like, I hate this movie, it's trash. That's kind of what I'm saying. You're more like, this is unfortunate because, and this is problematic because, and that's important. And I think that it doesn't make any sense that it was hard for us to find just a Hanukkah movie, but we chose this one because of that. We were like, I
knew there'd be a lot to talk about. Just seeing the title, I knew there'd be a lot to talk about in terms of the fact that we find it so hard to, like, just focus on Hanukkah for, like, one movie. But I do think that progress is often gradual. And so like, let's say that this movie was like one step forward from, you know, historically all Christmas movies all the time. So we're moving in the right direction. We definitely have some kinks that need to get worked out. If there's anybody out there who's writing movies for Lifetime and Hallmark who wants to consult with someone who like actually knows what's going on, give me a call. Come on over. I got thoughts. And again, I also don't want to suggest that like my Jewish experience is universal. There may be other Jewish people who watched the movie who felt less like confused than I did by certain things. I have to say, when she came back with the Christmas tree topper that she bought from the Jewish store, I was very confused. But but if you have listeners who are not confused by that, I would really love to know about that, because that is interesting. That is interesting to me.
Hit us up if you're not confused. Hit us up if this made perfect sense to you.
I don't know how to tell you this, but that's personally.
It feels like studios think that Jewish movies are like Hanukkah movies are fruitcake. Like, oh, it won't taste good. It won't be good. And it's like, what are you talking about? The more specific you get, the more interesting and nuanced. That's like being inviting to someone's family dinner and learning about their family is one of the coolest experiences you can ever have. If you're not the family in this movie that is on, like looking at the photos on the wall, seeing the Amazon, and the mom's like, yeah, if only they had air conditioning. Like, what a piece of shit. You know, it's just like, okay, you're just racist and you didn't like, they're trying to say that they're world travelers, yet they know nothing about Hanukkah, yet they know nothing about any of these cultures because they're so insular.
You get the sense that the people who wrote this movie did basically the amount of research that Christy did.
Yes.
Like they spent a few days with someone who's Jewish, got a feel for like the details and the traditions, threw in what they could, but didn't like get to the soul of the experience. And to me, it was like so clearly missing. So I don't know. I'm super curious to hear what other people thought. I hope other people watch the movie before listening to our conversation.
It's open a glass of wine or 4 cups of coffee, follow along. I was going to make a coffee for this because it felt on.
She did drink a shit ton of coffee.
Yeah, I was worried about her, although it's all sugar is what she's drinking. Although I guess she said unsweetened. I don't even know what it was.
I don't know. And the shot of espresso in there too. So
that's true.
It explained her peppiness.
And all the whipped cream too, like that
which
she didn't want, but she still drank it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie is like that. Like you don't really want it, but you're gonna finish it because. But
I'm sure every barista watching it, like at the end when the woman was like, "No, I was just new. I think you should be able to get exactly what you want." I'm sure like every barista was like, "Fuck that!"
I agree.
Like, no way! Barista. Don't walk in and 120 degrees. Come on.
Yeah,
she's asking about the temperature. Get out of here. You want to say like I want a pumpkin latte with a shot of espresso, and can you just fill it up 3/4 of the way so I have room to pour in whatever, fine. But like the 120 degrees really pissed me off. I was like, I'm sorry, get out of here.
How can she know? What does she fucking know if it's 122, 119?
I don't know.
Fuck this. Okay, the most believable performance in the film, the best performance were the 2 children dancing during the Christmas carols. They were the only ones that were real. And so they are the heroes of this film. Children are always the heroes. Tamar knows this better than anyone.
My acting teacher in college always said, you never want to be on stage with a child or a dog. They were like, they will upstage you every time.
And everyone's looking at them anyway, because they're more fun, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, you can't. And I mean, even if the child's a bad actor, like then
they're
takes
cute,
out
but
all
it's
the
cute.
Well, yeah, they're cute, but also that takes the oxygen out of the scene. It's sort of everyone's focusing on the kid anyway, right? And it's
totally.
It's not their fault. They're a kid. It's your fault. So yeah, thank you so much for watching.
My pleasure.
Mistletoe and Menorahs. It is on Tubi. It is on Lifetime, and those are never going away. This is an evergreen film. Maybe. But this is what I was gonna say. The movie ends with like a fun little like, ooh, Passover. And I was like, well, Tamar,
is there gonna be
would you like to
sequel?
come back? and watch a movie surrounding Passover, themed to Passover with me, or let's do some more research and watch these Hanukkah movies and see like
I would
what the
totally watch another one.
Okay, well, so
100%.
I mean, next year, and maybe I'll be more ready and we could do more. But like, I would love to do that because I think it's
great.
It's unfortunate that they don't exist to the extent that they should.
I agree.
So Tamar, as always, thank you so much, and this was so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Tamar, I guess this is a very unique episode. Normally, I'm not doing plugs, but I'm just like, Tamar, you sat through this movie and watched me eat latkes. Tamar, where can the people find you? What do you have to plug?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter at WriterTQB, WRITERTQB. I also host a podcast, which has been on hiatus for a little while now, but we've had new episodes all year. It's called The Shipping Room. We analyze and dissect fictional characters and their relationships on television. So it's a romantic podcast about fictional relationships, mostly from television. Sometimes we do movies or books. And that you can find us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Twitter at Shipping Room Pod. So we're all over the place. And then Andy and I had discussed beforehand, if you want to take the holiday season and donate to a Jewish organization, I'm very involved with the Jewish summer camp that I attended growing up. Which is Camp Ramah in the Berkshires. And, Jewish nonprofits are always looking for donations, and the way that they survive is by the generosity of the people who love them. So if anybody wanted to do that, you could mention me in the comments or Andy, so we know that it came from you guys. But that would be awesome.
Absolutely. There will be more information below. Everyone have a safe, happy holiday. This is sort of, I felt in a very like Hollywood way, I was like, oh, I'm going to do 12 days of Christmas movies with friends and not do anything for Hanukkah or not do anything for and I just I didn't want to just run blindly into that. And of course, all these Christmas movies, I'm going to be ripping apart in the same way that I did this movie. So, but I felt like it was important to not just see this as Christmas, even though, I am going to be turning into Santa coming soon. But
that sounds amazing. I can't wait to listen.
Thank you, Tamar. And thank you all for going on this insane journey. You didn't know that Wolf Mandy was back. He's not. This isn't Wolf Mandy. This is just Andy. But who knows what's on the horizon on the next day of Hanukkah, the next day of Christmas, whatever you celebrate is great with me. Love you all. Goodbye.
Bye.